Hey, so we are starting off again on Final Fantasy IV. So, when we last left off, the castle of a lot of people died. Okay, um, and our friend Edward is accompanying. I can't talk today. Our friend Edward is accompanying us because we browbeat him into doing so. So now we have a party of 3 and another level 1 character that we should probably level up a little bit. So remember the whole dungeon that we just went through? Well, now we've got a hovercraft and we can ride in these shallows here, so we can actually go around it instead of going back. Which is good, because I think I'm going to hang out around here a little bit and grind so that Edward is not at such a pitifully low level. And that should be pretty doable since we've got 2 pretty competent characters now. We can rain ice on these guys. So Edward. Basically Edward's thing is that he is a bard. He attacks with a magical harp. And he's also, since he's not really much of a fighter type dude, he also has the hide ability, which basically takes him out of the fight. I'm not sure if that's permanent for the duration of the fight or if he eventually comes back. It's hard to showcase his commands because I'm killing everything so much. Did he gain any? Whoa. Did I see him level up, but now he's at level 5. Did I just not pay attention and thought he was at level 1 incorrectly? Maybe that's the case. But anyway, here's my thing about Edward is, that I think a lot of people don't really like Edward because he's kind of a weak character. And they kind of perceive him as being very, very weak and useless and that kind of thing. And I kind of have an issue with that. I think it is kind of a recurring thing in RPGs or similar works, where a character who is not strong or like not extremely useful in a gameplay perspective kind of gets to be unpopular. This crops up in other works. I'm not sure if I have any good examples, but it is a thing that happens where characters that don't have a lot of strong powers tend to be kind of derided as weak or useless. But I don't think it's fair to expect every character to be, super strong or anything like that. And from a character perspective, you really have to think about what kind of person Edward is, because basically Edward is a bard and a prince. He's not really the kind of guy who's gonna go out and slaughter monsters. He's not physically strong, and his powers aren't really combat-oriented. And despite the fact that he is not that strong, and yes, maybe a little bit cowardly, he's still kind of going out and, going on this dangerous adventure to help Cecil, and to find this cure for Rosa. And he's doing it purely because he doesn't want to see someone lose someone that they love the way that he lost Anna. And that actually strikes me as pretty brave, even if it's something that's difficult for him, even if he can't take the monsters the same way that Cecil can, and sometimes he runs away from battles because he's not that strong. And so his capabilities from a character standpoint makes sense, and it seems a little bit dismissive to just hate on the character because he's weak. So that's my perspective on Edward, and I actually kind of like him as a character, because he is kind of a different kind of character from, you know, the typical strong dude who just goes out and kills a bunch of things. And you can kind of see kind of a sympathetic aspect to his character where he is kind of pushed into a situation that doesn't really suit his abilities that well, but he's still kind of going out there and trying his best like everyone else. So I kind of like Edward, and this is also a pretty good way to pass the time while I grind. We're not actually kind of rising through the ranks that fast, so maybe I'll kind of push for one more level, rest at the town, and then we will actually go ahead and proceed with the plot. So he's at level 7. So that's decent enough. Edward's never gonna exactly be, you know, real DPS guy. Mostly I just don't want him to you know, fall down too much. One thing that is useful that Edward can do is that his harp can inflict status effects. I think you saw that it inflicted sleep at one point. One thing that Final Fantasy VII doesn't do so well is it's not very good about indicating status effects. If there is a perception that status effects are kind of useless in Final Fantasy, this game doesn't really help it, because it's hard to tell why, or it's hard to tell when status effects are failing and why. And it's hard to tell when an enemy has a status effect other than that it just performs differently, like it doesn't attack or anything like that. And so when an enemy does fall asleep, you can't really tell just by looking at it. So let's see, this one goes to Mount Hobbs, which we can't go to yet. Actually, just in the spirit of exploration, I'll show you why we can't continue onward through here even if we wanted to. Oh, whoopsie. There's also the fact that we'll run into monsters that are too strong for us. But yeah, it's blocked by ice. And we won't be able to get through the ice until a plot-relevant bit later on. So we are going to have to continue onward to the lair of the antlion. So, just to fill you in case you forgot the details, the reason we are traveling to the lair of the antlion is because the antlion guards a artifact called the sandruby, which is a cure for the disease that Rosa caught while trying to find Cecil in the desert, and she collapsed from well, this disease. I assume it's some form of heat stroke, maybe fantasy heat stroke. I don't know, because it says she collapsed in the desert, and you know, deserts aren't really known for infectious diseases, but they do cause all kinds of unpleasant effects upon the human body thanks to the heat. So I'm guessing that she has, you know, some kind of heat stroke or something. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, let alone a fantasy doctor, so I couldn't tell you for sure. All we really need to know is that she's sick, and we need a MacGuffin to help her. Yeah, I don't really like fighting slimes. They tend to require magic to be killed, and I like saving my magic until the boss fight. What's up here? Ah, chest. I found a chest. Let's see, I probably should have checked on how many tents I have. Yeah, I've probably gotten a little too loose with my magic anyway, because I was using it for grinding. We should try not to waste it. Although using it to keep Edward alive is the same as wasting it, of course. Jeez, come on. Die. If we're going purely physical, we really need to fall back on Cecil to do much damage. God damn it. For the longest time, I didn't know what Imp Cap meant. If it's not clear from context, it's an Imp Captain. He's the captain of the Imps. I guess he's better than other Imps. Wow, he actually survived a gentle strike to the face. That is impressive. Imps really are the weakest characters, one of the weakest enemies in the game by far. You know, if you hit them, they pretty much die. Imp captains are not much better. There is actually a really funny recolor of an imp much later in the game called a tricker, and I'm not going to tell you what the deal with the tricker is because it's hilarious all by itself. You've really got to see it. Let's see now. If Viridia could actually get any hits off, she probably could kill an imp. Yeah. It's just that the accuracy is so bad that she just ends up causing 0 damage much of the time anyway. This is a basilisk. Some of the monsters here have kind of weird designs. You got kind of this sort of, whatchamacallit, chameleon-looking eye. It's, they're a little out there sometimes, but it looks cool. Although it's kind of a weird thing. The basilisk almost looks like some kind of giant insect lizard hybrid. I don't know. Freaking hate these things. Let's see. I feel like I missed something, but it's probably not important. Ah, yes. This is. Do we want this? Charm. So this is a much better weapon. You can see we've just about doubled in attack. And it can charm enemies, which basically means that they will hit each other in their confusion, which is a very nice thing to have, definitely. Where are we going? Probably didn't need a secret passage to get over here. Oh well. I'm thinking that a save point will turn up at some point, which would be good to have, because I really would like to be fresh for the boss. Let's see if we can get this thing to work. Come on, let's try this. Whoopsie. I forgot about that. So I believe Edward may hide if he's low on health. Yeah, there he goes. Even if it doesn't do much, I love that. The only command available is show. When Edward is hiding, he cannot be hit. He is just not present in battle. And the only thing he can do is to, to come back to combat. I do believe there is a glitch involved with his hiding ability, but I do not remember the details. That's not something I plan to mess around with here much, as glitches. Yeah, god damn it. Anyway, just because I don't want to like mess up the game or anything, I'm not really experienced with dealing with glitches. It's just not my area of expertise. I am more of a casual observer of interesting bugs. You know, I don't do speedruns and stuff. We're just going to go ahead and play the game as intended. If there are any interesting, you know, visually flamboyant glitches to see throughout the game, I may show them off. It's something I'd probably be prepared to rewind if needed. You know, I can always load from a save state if necessary. But I'm not planning on going out and doing a lot of the unusual stuff. I am going to show you the Peninsula of Power later on, because that actually is an interesting and useful glitch, and mostly harmless. Ah, this is the place I thought I missed, and it is in fact a save point. So let's give it a rest. I mean, let's rest. I'm not giving anything a rest, and we'll be fresh. And I think that the boss room is at the path at the bottom in the room we were just in, so it should be right there. I think this is a fairly small dungeon, so we may actually have time to do other things afterwards. So, turtles. A lot of hostile wildlife in this area. I think there's something about how with the crystals being all messed up, there's like a disruption of natural forces that cause animals to be more aggressive or something. I don't know. I think they'd put that in every Final Fantasy game just to justify the fact that you're fighting encounters every 5 steps. Although I guess later on in the series it's kind of a given. So no, this is the wrong way. We need to go down these steps here. And yeah, it kind of funnels down into here, and then we come into this big ol' amphitheater looking place. I think everyone's pretty much geared up. Edward is a little bit hurt, but I think he'll be fine. If he takes another hit, I'll use a cure on him. I think we've got plenty of... well, no, actually, we're actually going to be relying on Rydia's magic a lot in this next battle, and I will explain to you why once it begins. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Boss time. Come on. Woohoo! We did it. I'm sure that you believe that, right? Or not. Okay, so the antlion has a gimmick. Of course he does. Gimmick is that if you hit it with physical attacks, and I think if you hit it with magic attacks, it's gonna beat the crap out of you with a powerful counter. And the only way that, at least to my knowledge, this is how it works. The only way to circumvent this is to use the Chocobo summon to kick the crap out of it. Funnily enough, this is an interesting, this is a good point to talk about this, is that, the game, at least the American version of the game, the manual comes with basically a walkthrough through the first half of the game. I assume that they did this because they figured that, you know, the clueless American kids wouldn't have been able to figure out how to play without a walkthrough. I don't know, but I used it because I was like 10 when I played this game, and what it does tell you to use the Chocobo summon. I don't know for sure if Rydia's other magic is safe to use, but I've always taken the antlion like this, and it's fairly easy. You can see, you just kick the crap out of it with a Chocobo. It's pretty much the only time you'll find yourself using the Chocobo summon because there's not much use to it. Otherwise, I guess it's decent damage. But you get much more interesting summons later on. Yeah, like I said, monsters are getting worse and no one knows why. I do kind of like the idea that this horrible, gigantic ant with the gigantic, like, tusks is normally a tame, gentle creature. That's kind of, that's interesting. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Actually, hold on. Oh, that's weird. Did I mess something up here? I guess, hold on. I need to mess with the key bindings later. You can change which character is walking on the overworld. The problem is I mapped A and S to L and R, but I believe WASD is still walking around by default, WASD, which messes things. I should fix that. I didn't even know that. I thought it. I guess it's because it's defaults. I don't know. That's weird. I would have thought I would have noticed that sooner. But yeah, when I was a kid, most of my working knowledge about how to take on the game was gleaned directly from the manual / walkthrough. The interesting thing is in the DS remake of the game, they actually had a different and I think much more interesting gimmick with the antlion, which is that the antlion has its eyes switch between red and blue, and the color of its eyes determines whether it will counterattack magic attacks or physical attacks. And I believe that is explained to you, unlike this game, which doesn't really explain anything to you, and I guess you're just supposed to figure out the rules through trial and error. I don't think it's that bad throughout the game. It seems weird that it would want you to use Chocobo specifically. I really don't know. I've never tried using other magic. I should, like, look it up. It's kind of funny how much of this knowledge of my game isn't really gleaned from, you know, guides or anything. It's just that manual that I read when I was 10, which for all I know could have been packed with misinformation. But it got me through the game, so I'm not gonna complain. A lot of this stuff I don't know how you'd know how to do without the guide. I guess I can't really go back to a time when I didn't know all of that and kind of analyze it from kind of a beginner's perspective, because at this point the steps to beating this game are pretty much coded into my DNA. Am I going the right way? As soon as I say this, I start getting lost. No, I don't have a perfect layout in my mind of the maps of the dungeons, of course. I know the plot pretty well, which is why I'm actually going into this game without any prep, which is something I'd never do with another game that I'm LPing. But I really do know this game like the back of my hand, so I'm not. Other than random things like never learning how sight works, I know the story of the game like the back of my hand. I'm not likely to get lost. Of course, I have to. Anytime I say that, I have to immediately backpedal on some point. Let's rest at the inn. Did they all just stay in the same bed? I don't know. There's room for 6 beds. It's like they kind of had the idea of animating them splitting up, and I think they do that in cutscenes, but they don't bother in the regular resting at the inn animation. Oh no, wait. We're supposed to be here. You know, you don't see that many people with blonde beards. Or do you? I don't know. Beards, another thing I have to claim to not be an expert on. And of course, this is back in the days when you could not simply automatically use the item if you have it. I would love to hear an actual, like, physician from this world explain to me in, like, in biological detail what this affliction is and how a sand ruby cures it. That would actually be kind of fascinating to me. It's just, the game doesn't really pay attention to those things. It's very MacGuffin oriented. Um, but you know, I'm very into world building stuff, and to an extent, I do kind of wish that was fleshed out more in this game. But you know, you make do with what you've got. Man, news travels fast. Wasn't that like yesterday? I know you just woke up, but let me pump you for information about the plot. I guess that is one downside of this game's story, is it kind of feels at times that they're kind of rushing through things. But you know, I guess it's kind of an artifact of the style of writing at the time. I don't know. How do you pronounce that? Toroya? I'm always kind of inclined to pronounce it Troya, but that's not quite right. Is that an issue of... It seems like that's something of a mistranslation, like in katakana it would have been Toroya, but it should have been translated back to Troya. I don't know. Oh yeah, whoops. Because they stole it with their exploding teleportation arrows. Considering they basically have only 2 frames of facial animation, they managed to do a fair bit with it, actually making it look like she's coughing. They do add a lot more facial expressions in the later games, Final Fantasy VI especially. It would have been nice to see where they went with that, except that then they went into 3D and, well, you know. I actually think their 3D models in Final Fantasy VII were less expressive, but that's a rant for another day. How would they know that if they hadn't? Well, okay, I guess he lives around there, so fair enough. Well, at least we're giving her a day to rest. So, the that scene with Edward is actually a part of the game that I really like, because it says a lot of things about Edward's character in a relatively simple scene. Um, the question is, why do you have Edward fight a relatively unassuming monster? And I think that the point is that a monster like that would be relatively trivial for someone like, say, Cecil to kill. But the question of how strong a person is isn't about their objective physical strength, but about how they're able to face up to the challenges in their life. The fact that Edward is able to stand up to a monster that wouldn't be difficult for Cecil but is more difficult for him to fight shows that he does have that level of mental fortitude necessary to be a hero who could actually contribute to saving the world. Um, it also shows uh, some hints about his relationship with Anna, which I do wish had been explored more. Um, it really seems like um, they kind of did have a relationship where the gender roles were somewhat switched, is how I personally perceive it, where Anna was a source of personal strength for him, and he's struggling with the idea of coping without her, and so being able to show his own strength is a way for him to move on from his dependence on her. But that's just my personal interpretation. In any case, it occurs to me that I should try not to actually have these massive hour-long videos if I can. So I think I'm going to cut this off and divide the next dungeon into a separate part. So I will see you then.